guys, I'm Live Action of the MLP Grimdark reading called Sparrow Reads, A Process of Elimination, Part 2, Chapters 4 to 8. Wow, it is 1 hour, 39 minutes, and 27 seconds long. Okay, this is a long one. Oh dear, it is a long one. I'm not going to do it in one go in terms of recording, but you're going to see it in one go. Of course, it's me, Mark. I know, yes. Sweetie Belle is active. Didn't even know what she's going to do. I'm just waiting for it. I'm just waiting for it. Okay, going back to the chapter 1, we got... I've forgotten the name now. We are in Twilight's past, or we are basically we are in the past, technically. There we go, the first technicalities. Do we trust this pony? I've forgotten his name. I'm not sure if I trust Crimson Storm, but at the same time, we don't know the full picture surrounding Crimson Storm. Thank you. We don't know we need some more concrete information, because Blue Blood is basically and technically, oh god, there he goes, the bully of the series, I think. Unless he got cronies. Not Crab and Goyle though.
Seriously?
Sorry, Apple Bloom. Really am sorry. And Twilight has turned Ace Attorney a detective. Wow. Wow.
Seriously?
Oh dear. I'm not sure if she's going to say objection.
Seriously?
I'm sorry, Apple Bloom. I didn't mean it. Sorry. Jeez. Louise. Who is Louise? I know one Louise.
Seriously?
Sorry, Apple Bloom. Really, I'm sorry. Well, we need to find out what's going on with Crimson Storm. There was a hint of blood, or a vision of a blood-ish. It's Harry Potter-ish as well. Let's find out. Let's get this reaction started in 3, in 2, in 1, go. Oh boy, yeah. Sparrow presents. Oh, I'm not going to get jump scare now. Not like last time. Hello, Fluttershy. Oh dear. Mine's been working to the family bit with that intro. Post Elimination Part 2. Okay. Let's go. I like this piano music. Has he used this piano music before? Not in
the process of elimination.
I know.
Written by the 7 saviors.
I know the music's been used before by Sparrow. I'm not talking about
4,
last chapter.
A noble cult.
Normal cult. Is it normal cult?
For as many foolish and inane plans as I'd made, none of them wound up coming to fruition.
Who?
It was the day after I'd made those plans that my life as Princess Celestia's student really began, and by then I found myself far too busy to even see Crimson Storm again, let alone spy on either her or Blue Blood.
Wait, where are they though?
Days turned into weeks, and between my studies and personal lessons with Celestia, I eventually got so caught up in being a student that I more or less forgot about the whole situation altogether in favor of making sure I did my mentor proud.
Yeah.
Not helping
You mean
matters was the fact
Celestia.
that I'd seen neither hide nor hair of the red mare in the following days. For the first few days after I'd written down my plans, I tried to
thought the Twilight's crown was
to me, to no avail. I was upset about
when
it,
she
to be
became
sure,
a princess.
But I soon decided that my obligations to the princess
In a
came
sense,
first, so I stopped
it looks
looking
like
not too
she got
long
the crown
after
when
that.
she was a filly.
I had seen Captain Blueblood a few
Lest
times,
we
but
get
didn't
a
have
like a
the
grown-up
nerve to ask
Twilight
him
later
where
on.
Crimson was. It wasn't until I'd completely given up and moved on that I finally
Because
saw her
I'm not sure this is
and
the
not in
present
way
day
I'd expected
Philly
to.
Twilight here.
I learned a few horrible things that night about Crimson Storm, Captain Blueblood, and myself as well.
And other
For
ponies,
me,
maybe.
though, it was more that, for the first time since I'd woken up in the hospital after the incident,
Instant?
I was forced to confront an uncomfortable truth that I'd known about myself for quite some time.
What's that?
But never truly acknowledged. It all began when I was introduced to Captain Blueblood's son, Blueblood the Seventh, during a lull in my
Oh,
sessions.
there was a line of sessions of Blue Bloods, wasn't
Gala
there?
was just around the corner, and the entire castle staff was in a frenzy trying to prepare for the event, even though it wasn't supposed to be held for another week.
Oh.
I was able to attend the event as the princess's little lady-in-waiting, much to my
Little
complete
waiting.
disbelief.
Little lady. That's
By
a
that
mouthful.
time,
Little
Princess
lady
Celestia and I
in
had
waiting.
grown
Wow,
fairly
that's a bit of a
close,
mouthful.
and the whole thing had been her idea.
Oh.
I'd nearly fainted at the notion, but that just amused her all the more, making me think it was all some sort of joke at my expense. The role was genuine, however, and Celestia had put my lessons on hold in order to prepare me for it, as well as oversee the actual event preparations.
Oh.
At the same time, I was urged by the princess to spend some time away from my studies.
Oh.
There were a lot of ponies coming in from all over Equestria to attend, including parents and their foals.
Oh, it's
Some
like
of these
a
ponies were invited
what
to
we
stay
will
in the
call
guest rooms at the
a like
castle
an insect
itself,
day sort
and
of thing.
Celestia thought I should take the opportunity to try and mingle with some of the other
Basically,
colts and
Twilight's in
fillies
a
my
boarding
age.
school then.
The problem was that the other colts and fillies
Basically,
my
it's
age
Hogwarts.
were the sons and daughters of
Technically.
wealthy high society ponies.
Sorry.
I had already grown wary of nobles by this point,
Yeah.
and knew nothing
Yeah.
good would come out of my attempts at friendship with the other foals.
Oh.
Still, I tried for Celestia's sake, and went out of my
Well,
way
it's
to
true. This was
communicate
before
with
they
the
met the
others.
main
Something
five,
that would
like
come soon to
all
be
the other
learned.
ponies.
A couple days after Celestia told me to try and make some
She's
friends,
got a cutie
I found
mark,
my
but she
chance
has
during
no
the visit to the royal gardens. I had only
friendship
meant
as
to
such.
pass by on my way
in a
to
sense.
the archives to sneak in a bit more studying when I spotted a trio of unicorn foals in the distance, trotting amongst the many statues. Though the princess had told
It's
me
just,
there
this
were
is the
foals
gardens,
out
isn't
and
it?
about, I hadn't really seen any up until
Because it
this
reminds
point,
me of,
and
you
figured I'd
know,
rather get
the
this out of the way
when we
sooner
saw like
rather than
Discord
later.
statue.
As the trio moved through the small forest of statues on display, I quietly followed after them. The group consisted of a short and pudgy colt with a grayish coat and a curly teal mane and tail, a giggly filly with a seafoam green coat and a burgundy
Octavia?
colored mane and tail, and a tall colt with a light gray coat and amber mane and tail. The
Is
tall
this
colt
Octavia?
seemed to be the
Is
oldest
this
of the
Octavia
three,
now?
though I couldn't tell by how much. There was something about the large colt that seemed oddly familiar, but at the
Well, it's
time,
his colt,
I couldn't
though. It
place
can't be
my hook
Octavia's
on what it
colt.
was. I watched as they all stopped in front of a marble-carved statue of a stern-looking unicorn stallion in what looked like old-fashioned, formal military attire, rearing on his hind legs.
So the Wonderbolt sort of
The
thing.
statue itself wasn't important to me, but in my endless need to impress my mentor, I'd memorized the history behind each and every statue in the garden. And
Research!
that knowledge was what I felt would be important now.
Oh,
Each of the
dear.
foals stood before the
You love your
statue, with the
research,
tall
Twilight,
colt
don't you?
eyeing it with
You
an
really love
almost
your
smug
research, don't
sense
you?
of superiority,
Yeah.
as though he was the one that had carved it himself.
Oh, dear.
For a moment, none of them said anything, and as I watched, I could see the white colt frowning slightly as he cast an expectant glaze backwards at the other two.
Are you Twilight
Neither
Sparkle?
of them said anything, however, and simply returned the look with confused stares between the light gray colt and the statue. I heard the colt give an exasperated sigh, and turned to face the others with an annoyed scowl. "Do either of you imbeciles know who
Oh
this
my
is?"
god!
He snapped. "Not a clue, no." I sensed my opportunity, and
The
waited for
slobs.
the right
Hello,
moment
Mr.
to
Slob.
pounce on it as he spoke again.
That's not your
The
name,
gray
but I
colt
know,
tilted
but you're a
his head
slop.
and squinted at the statue in bemusement before looking back to the
I'm much
taller
better than him.
"Sorry, Blue Blood, but I don't have a clue on who this stallion is." The rotund gray colt replied with a nervous smile. "Should we?" My eyes widened
Ah,
at the
Blue
mention
Blood.
of the colt's name, and my
That's
smile
before you met
widened as
Rarity.
the memory of all those plans I'd written came back to me. That colt must have been the son of the captain, and if I could get him on my good side, then I might be able to learn more about
Yeah.
his father. I went
Reminds
to
me of
step out
Poison
past the
Pierce,
hedge
someone's
I was hiding
burning.
behind and introduced
You
myself,
don't. You won't
but
understand
the
that. You
baleful
won't
glare
understand that.
Blueblood gave the other colt made me pause. The smaller colt cringed back, and the filly giggled nervously before speaking up. Well, obviously, he's a soldier of some renown, she replied, trying and failing to sound
Assault,
like she
or
knew
is
what
it
she was talking
assault?
about.
It was basically like. Is it like a military? Is it like a war statue or something?
Equestria and the princess. Blueblood whipped around to face the filly, narrowing his eyes. And tell me, Winter Chime.
Winter Chime. Okay.
What, pray tell, is this stallion famous for specifically?
Flying
What
to
has
the
he
sun? I
contributed
don't know.
to our great nation and her royal highness?
The founder of the Wonderbolts? No, that can't be right.
He took a
The
forceful
founder.
step towards the
Founder
filly,
of something.
who
I don't
stumbled
know.
back, her nervous grin morphing into something more panicked as Blueblood spoke. Do you even know his name? Well,
General Firefly?
I mean, he's... She trailed off and giggled again, much to Blueblood's frustration. He sneered down at the other two foals and was about to reply when I finally stepped out and spoke up. General Ironblood III. I explained with a hint of pride.
Ironblood III.
The others snapped their gazes over to me, and my own smile widened at their surprise as I continued. A distinguished general from back when Equestria still had a standing army, rather than the royal EUP guard we have today.
Oh,
There was a
Wonderbolts.
heartbeat
The
of silence
Wonderbolts.
as I waited for the others to respond.
Yeah.
And then... Excuse me? The filly suddenly snarled, causing me to flinch back in surprise and my ears to lower in dismay. I took a step back as she glared at me, her eyes blazing
Oh, come on,
and her
really?
voice shrill with indignation. Who in Equestria do you think you are to just show up out of nowhere and... She narrowed her eyes slightly before speaking in a low, thoughtful tone. Wait a minute. Aren't you... A light gray hoof held her
What?
back as she began to advance.
You know her?
And she blinked in silent bewilderment before turning to Blueblood. The colt held her back, but his eyes were focused on me, a small smirk playing across his face. Ignore this idiot, he said calmly, his arctic blue eyes roaming over me with interest.
If you talk
as
about
he lowered
Twilight,
his
shut
foot.
up.
She likes to talk posture, but rarely has anything of worth to say. Please, continue. His tone was polite, but I could hear the casual disregard for the filly next to him, and from the indignant and somewhat hurt look she tried to cover up, I could tell the filly heard it too.
Oh.
That aside, something about the colt's gaze made me shudder in disgust in a similar way to when I met his father.
Oh.
I suddenly wanted to
You
leave
met
right
the
then
father?
and there, but I resisted the urge and pushed on, unwilling to waste the
Is
opportunity.
that part of the
given to
Blue
me.
Blood family or something?
I cleared my throat and tried to smile as I continued my explanation, but it just came out as an odd mix between a nervous smile and a worried grimace.
Oh.
Well, I shuffled awkwardly, suddenly all too aware of my shyness and aptitude when it came to talking to the other foals my age. He, General Ironblood, that is, made a name for himself during the Battle of Horseshoe Bay when he and a small
Horseshoe
contingent
Bay!
of his own soldiers,
Wow,
mostly
the
consisting of unicorns
puns.
and pegasi, successfully managed to fend
But
off a larger group
bear in
of
mind, we do
minotaurs
have a place
trying
in
to invade
a place in
Baltimore
UK
by way
called
of the
Horsham.
Celestial Sea. And
Horseshoe Bay.
Blueblood pressed,
Does,
taking a step
it sounds like a real place though.
Go on. There's more to be told, right? Right. I was beginning to regret my decision more and more as time went on, and wanted nothing more than to hide
A
in
Sapphic
the hole
know-it-all.
but I
A
continued
Sapphic
on.
know-it-all that was...
Well, for his outstanding service in the war against the Republic of Minos,
Snake will say.
he was awarded the Equestrian Badge of Honor given to him by Princess Celestia herself. And what else? Blueblood
That's like
urged,
having it. That's
smiling
like a
in
George
anticipation.
Cross
Surely you know what became of Ironblood and his family, right?
murdered.
What became of the Ironblood family name? No. Not really, I replied sheepishly. I haven't really looked into his genealogy. Sorry. Blueblood's smile fell into a disappointed frown, and with a heavy sigh, he retreated back to where he stood before.
Oh.
He huffed and pushed a stray lock of his long amber mane out of his face before giving me a sardonic smile. Well, that's a pity, he said, his tone as light and charming as he could make it. But I suppose you know more than these two simpletons, so that's something to be commended. He ignored the two grumbling and stuttering foals behind him and
really? I know
up to me.
Twilight is
I could
brainy,
tell he
but
was older by
really,
a few years.
Blood?
Certainly older than me, but not quite as old as my brother.
Twilight is like being a Hermione Granger.
It was actually the Ironblood family that the noble Blueblood house was born, with the grandson of Ironblood III at the helm.
Did I just call that?
Rather than
part of the
become
Bloober
a
family or
like
something.
his father and father's father before him, Ironblood V decided to take up the seat on the then newly formed council in the then newly built city of Cantor.
Was it round the round table?
Really? I replied, genuinely surprised and a bit intrigued despite myself.
Sorry.
I haven't done too much research on the early days of Canterlot's governing body, at least not yet. Oh, you really should take some more time to look into it.
Twilight would. Twilight will, though. Twilight will.
It's quite the fascinating study, if I do say so myself.
You might have a dark history, though.
Celestia still held a very large
I think there would be like a
portion of
dark
the
history
power,
if you
sure.
searched it out.
But to let a group of elected ponies oversee the day-to-day issues of the city was unheard of.
Oh?
And caused quite a bit of a stir, if the stories are to be believed.
There is a dark
He
history
chuckled
now.
again and brought both our attention back over to the statue as he spoke. No longer did the princess rule alone, as far as the city went.
100, 200,
He said in a
500
wistful
years?
tone, almost as if he himself had been there in that time. She'd given other ponies power, a piece of the pie, so to speak, and over time, the noble houses, which held little power at the time, grew into something grand and magnificent. He turned back to me. his
I'm just
smile
guessing
widening
500
with
years.
pride, and his icy eyes sparkling with something I couldn't quite place at the time. Whatever it was, it deepened the unease I felt, and I couldn't help but take a step back.
I don't know how long.
Unlike his fathers before him, Ironblood V used his wits rather than his
If we don't know
pride
how
to secure
old
his
Celestia
family's
really
name
is,
as
really.
the most powerful
We know she's
noble
over
house
1,000
in
years at
Canterlot.
least.
Blueblood continued in an almost reverent tone. Through a political marriage, he became a relative of the princess herself, and as a sign of his family's
related to the
newfound
princess?
status, he changed the family name
How,
from
though?
Ironblood to Blueblood and took up the
Because
title
Celestia hasn't
of the
ha-
first
Celestia
prince of
hasn't
nobles,
married.
Prince Blueblood the First. I was still trying to take the new information in when Blueblood moved closer,
Oh.
raising his head
Don't get too
proudly
close.
and put a hoof on my chest.
Oh, really?
And I am next in line to inherit the title, he exclaimed,
Really?
inclining his
No.
head slightly.
Well, you can't stop
My
it,
name is
really?
Blueblood
It's like
the
a royal family. You
son of the
can't
captain
stop
of the
it.
Royal Guard and current Prince Blueblood the Sixth. As though it was an afterthought, he turned and
But what
gestured
does
to
the
the other
title
foals
give you,
behind
though?
him, his expression growing somewhat dull and
What does the
disinterested.
title give you?
This is Winter Chime, he said.
Hello, Winter
pointing
Chime.
To the nodding filly. Her mother, Winter Bell, is the current Chief Justice of Canterlot's Supreme Court. And this...
Oh, he's
His frown
like
deepened
a
almost imperceptibly as he turned his
he-
attention to the smirking gray
related.
colt.
Oh,
His greedy gut. His father, Stingy Gut, owned several
Stingy
of the
Gut?
banks, not just in
okay, she
Canterlot,
they were.
but in
His father worked.
Manhattan and
Oh,
Baltimore
his
as
father
well.
worked for the courts then.
The other two went to introduce themselves, but Blueblood silenced them with a look before turning back to me with a kind smile. That smile, coupled with the way he treated what I initially assumed were his friends, set me on edge. And I returned
Friends?
his easy smile with a weak one of my own.
Where does Blue
It is a
Blood
pleasure
treat
to meet
anyone
you,
with
Miss-
a friendly look?
Blueblood paused expectantly, and I blinked.
I don't think
stupidly
he-
for
I
a
don't think
moment
he
before
doesn't know anything
registering
about
that I was
French, does he?
supposed to introduce myself. Flustered, I chuckled awkwardly and stuttered out an introduction. I'm Twilight.
Sparkle.
Twilight Sparkle. I replied lamely.
Before Princess
I,
Twilight
uh,
Sparkle, though.
I just became Princess Celestia's personal protege a little over a month ago. Her protege, you say?
It's only been a
Blueblood
month.
replied with an intrigued raise of his brow.
Wow.
Well, This
And
is a
Twilight
pleasant
knows that much
surprise now,
already.
Isn't it? He trotted around me, looking me up and down with that smart
Well, she did
smirk
train
from
a
earlier.
lot to get
In
the
fact,
Hokuto
I'd say
though.
this was a fortuitous meeting for the both of us. It is?
It is.
I asked, both dumbfounded and wary. How so? I bet you've grown pretty close to the princess, haven't you? Blue
Well,
asked pointedly.
yes and yes.
What with the personal lessons and everything, yes? Well, yeah, I guess so. I replied,
But how
furrowing
close,
my
though?
brow. But why does that matter? His
That's
smirk
true.
widened
Why
a
does
touch
it
in
matter,
response, and I had
Blue
to
Blood?
suppress a shiver.
Why does it
In
even
that
matter?
case, I think we might be able to help each other. He answered.
You
If you're
help.
as close to the princess as I think
How?
you are, you might be able to help me and some of my friends. Given time, of course.
Why
What do you mean?
Why should we help
asked,
you though?
growing more
Why
worried
should
by the
we
subject.
help you, Blue Blood?
How can I help a pony like you? I'm not really poor, but I'm not exactly a noble either.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, don't worry about that.
Oh,
Blue Blood replied with
Well,
a
that's a
dismissive
first.
wave of his hoof. I'm sure we can still be friends. And who knows? Maybe with a bit of
Twilight
help from
and
my
Blue Blood
father's
friends?
current friends, we
Uh,
can even remedy that.
I don't see it working
Remedy
out.
What? I took another step back, and my frown grew more pronounced. Are you saying you can make me a noble or something? I had a bad feeling about where this was headed.
Yeah, why
but at the
would you
same
make yourself a
time,
noble
I had
though?
a chance to find out more about
Then
his
Twilight
father and maybe
Sparkle
Crimson
would-
Storm if I was lucky.
It might
Even
encourage
so,
her to be
however, I
snobbish
could hear
or
Crimson's
rude
voice in
to
my head.
ponies.
I could hear the utter contempt in her voice when she talked about the nobles, and that gave me pause. Well, I'm not promising that much, but I can definitely make your life easier, Blue Blood replied. He
How?
paused a moment.
How?
Well, I can't personally, but I know ponies that can. And all
Oh?
I ask in
Oh, of course you know
return is a few
ponies in high
favors.
places, including the sky.
No, I replied hesitantly. I'm pretty sure you're overestimating how much power I actually have. Yeah, Princess Celestia and I have grown pretty close.
Yeah.
But I'm still just a filly, and she's the princess.
And you
I can't
and
just
the
ask her to do a bunch of stuff for me.
yeah,
Oh.
that's true.
The tall colt replied with a raised brow.
Ow.
I don't think you're giving yourself and your position enough credit. He
Position?
chuckled knowingly and moved to stand before the other two. I'm not asking for anything major right at this very moment. I just want you to remember me for now, and what my father and I can offer. He fell silent, and his
I'm
gaze
reading
intensified for a brief
treat
moment.
Celestia as a
I
slave.
wondered what he'd say
Did I
next,
just hear that
and I was
right?
surprised
Or
when
something.
he trotted right up to me and held his hoof out. I looked at his hoof, then to the other
You
two
gonna-
foals
don't-
behind him, noting the
Twilight, you're
filly's
gonna shake it,
previously
aren't you?
blank expression
You're gonna
and
shake
the
that
other
hoof,
colt's
aren't you?
wide, stupid grin. After a moment, I returned my bemused gaze to Blue Blood. He simply smiled in response as he held out his hoof. What say you, Twilight Sparkle? You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Oh no no
And
no no no
maybe,
no no no
with a
no
bit
no!
of time,
That
we can
means
all be good
I scratch your
friends.
back. That is a slave term, I think. I think that's a slave term. Oh, it's a bloody slave term. That isn't
Chapter 5. The Proposal.
gonna get married. No.
I never gave Blue Blood an outright answer to his offer, but he didn't seem to mind. On the contrary,
Yeah, really
the
think
noble
about it,
colt,
Twilight.
much to my surprise and
Really,
suspicion,
really think
seemed
about it.
content to let me stew on the matter for as long as I wanted. In the meantime, probably in an effort to win me over, he insisted I hang out with him and his cohorts until the gala kicked off.
Where's Crimson
Every fiber of my
Storm?
being told me not to go, told me that it was a
Where's
terrible
Crimson
idea,
Storm?
but I was a shy and meek little fool.
Really?
Maybe
Where's
not as
Crimson
shy and
Storm?
meek as a certain mare, but it was enough that I was easily susceptible to peer pressure.
Where's
a concept I
Crimson?
had yet to truly experience up until that point. Reluctantly, but surely, I agreed, and spent the rest of the day and most of the week leading up to the gala, seeing just how the richer
At the
folds of
gala?
society lived and acted. I don't know how I managed to stomach it, even as a foal myself. I suppose I just kept telling myself to do it for Crimson Storm and the princess, the former of whom I
Yeah,
still
we don't know where
hadn't
Crimson
seen.
Storm is, though.
In any case, I followed the 3 rich foals around as they wandered the castle and mingled with a few of the other foals, as well as some of the more important adults staying at the castle for the gala. I listened as they talked about things I neither knew nor cared about.
Does it mean
Mostly things about
Tyler's
themselves
been at a
and
gala
their family's
before then?
exploits, assets, or just general self-aggrandizing nonsense. I was
Well,
more or less
this is a
ignored
Twilight
for the
universe,
most part,
because
except when it was
she-
convenient for me to be
in the
brought up in
series, she didn't know much about the
conversation.
gala anyway.
Whenever I was spoken about, it was usually in the context of the incident involving the nearly catastrophic magic surge I'd suffered during the exam. The topic made me
Really?
uncomfortable and self-conscious, and the more it was brought up, the more withdrawn I grew.
Well,
Not helping matters
mind you, that
how
was
I
Rainbow Dash's
talked
doing,
about,
though.
but never
with her Sonic
directly
Rainbow.
talked to. It was as though I wasn't even there, and I couldn't bring myself to say anything about it because of the guilt and shame I felt whenever they talked about the
It's not your
consequences of my
fault, though,
actions.
Twilight.
I learned just how far-reaching the damage I could have caused, and in some cases did cause, stretched, and it made me feel horrible. It made me feel like I'd failed, even though I'd gotten my cutie mark.
You did
and
not
became
fail,
Celestia's
Twilight.
protege. It made me feel as though I hadn't earned it.
Well, he's a special
And over
magical
time,
friend, though,
I've
isn't
started
it?
to believe
Rainbow
it.
Dash is your friend.
After all, what did
It's
I
your
really
friend,
do
but
other than
technically not your
damage
friend
this
till you
whole
actually
property
meet your
and put
friend.
Pony's lives in danger?
Wow.
I put the princess's life in danger, and laughed all the while like some crazy pony. I began to feel nausea mixed with the odd giddiness I'd feel every time I thought about the incident, and the combination made me feel sick and
Why?
miserable.
You,
Blue Blood did nothing to dissuade the insults and dirty looks of the other nobles, at least not in their presence. It was only when we were all out of sight that he said anything about it, offering me words of apology and consolation, giving me his best encouraging smile.
Blue
Like the
Blood's
naive little
saying
filly
sorry.
I wiped away my tears, smiled back, and thanked him for his support.
Thank you. Thank you.
I've said it before, but I wasn't a social butterfly, and while I wasn't as bad
Well,
as Crimson, I still
Fluttershy
had a
is
little
a social-
experience when it came to
isn't
how
a social
folks treated
butterfly
other
either.
folks, how the rich treated every pony else, and most importantly, how some pony was raised to know how to get what they want, manipulated the ignorant pony who had access to what
That's
they
like
wanted.
Kay, like a Malfoy,
I
isn't
was
it?
the ignorant pony, and before I knew it, I'd gotten mixed up in Blue Blood's machinations. He had been a foal like me, but he was intelligent and cunning, no doubt
Very
due to his
intelligent.
upbringing.
Ish.
I didn't know that, and the more he comforted me, the more I came to see him as a friend, a lifeline in the rolling sea of scorn and self-importance that was the community of Canterlot nobles.
But
I
how
didn't
many?
even
How
question the fact that he'd gotten
sorry,
rid of his
how
two
many
companions
nobles
at
are
some
there?
point. If anything,
How many
I
nobles
was
are we
grateful
talking
for it,
about, though?
as they hadn't been nearly as nice as the older court. Wintertime in particular seemed to have it out for me for some reason, and I was all too happy not to see her anymore. The entirety of that week, at least when I wasn't with the
Basically,
princess,
he's like
was spent
a-
in the company of the wealthy.
He,
whether
the
I
cult
was
is
with
like
Blue
a
Blood or
Malfoy
not.
then.
As the gala drew closer, more and more nobles could be seen hanging about the castle. And
Who
you
else
couldn't
will be
go
at?
anywhere
Who
without
else will be at the
seeing at
gallo?
least a few in the
Gallo?
area.
Gallo? Gallows?
Castle
No,
suffered
no,
at
no,
the
no.
push of some of the more
Gala.
temperamental of
At the
nobles,
gala.
and I
Gala,
did the
not
best I could
gallows.
to help out
Or
with the
gala.
preparation. But as the
Here's
week before
Gallo.
the gala neared its end, I found I just didn't have the time. About 2 days before the night of the gala, Blue Blood approached me, his expression pleasant and unamusing.
Oh?
There was something in his smile that made me uneasy, but by this point, I'd fully
He
considered
murdered
Blue
someone?
Blood a pony I could trust. The only pony I could trust besides the princess.
Oh?
To me,
You
he was
trust
the first
Blue
true
Blood?
friend I'd made since coming to the
I'm not
castle,
sure about that.
not counting my full sitter Cadence and my older brother, that is. And so I ignored the feeling and listened to what he had to say. He caught me just as I was on my way to have breakfast with the princess that morning, stopping me in the corridor just outside my bedroom.
Go on.
Blue Blood? I asked, giving
Yes,
the smiling tilt
Twilight?
of amused frown. What are you doing here so early? I'm sorry for holding you up, Twilight, he replied, bowing his head apologetically. I'd heard that it was common for you to dine with the princess during breakfast hours, and I'd hoped to meet you before that.
She didn't the first time.
I
It was
replied,
Crimson
wondering
Storm,
just what Blue Blood
technically.
could want now of all time.
Well, have I missed something?
What for? Did something happen? no, nothing like that, Blueblood assured, raising a hoof. I simply wanted to talk to you about the little matter we discussed when we first met, is all.
Oh.
When we met? I furrowed my brow in thought a moment before
We met
realization
before, though.
struck. My ears flattened, and I swallowed nervously before replying. Oh,
That.
right. That. I scraped a hoof against the floor and gave Blueblood an apologetic frown.
Oh, really?
I'm sorry, Blueblood. You helped me a lot, and I appreciate that. But I can't just ask the princess for favors like that. Blueblood's smile dipped ever so slightly.
She's the
I
ruler
see.
after all.
He said quietly before taking a step forward. I understand your hesitation, Twilight. You respect the princess a great deal, and you don't want to feel like you're manipulating her into doing what you want. I get it. But won't you at least hear me out?
Okay, yeah, at least give him that, I suppose.
Checking to make sure the halls were relatively empty before returning a nervous gaze back to Blueblood. All right. Fine. I guess I can at least hear what you want.
That's
all I ask. Blueblood replied. His smile returned in full as he stepped away. I'm sure you've met my father at some point. Yes?
Yep.
Prince Blueblood VI, current captain of the guard.
The Roll
I've
Guard.
met him, I replied, now fully on guard for what came next. What about him? Well, you see, Blueblood began, leaning in close and speaking in a conspiratorial whisper. My father is, as of right now, unmarried and desires to take a bride. Unmarried? I repeated, surprised at the notion. But what about your mom? They aren't together? I'm afraid not. Blueblood sighed despondently.
Well,
My father's previous wife, my mother, was discovered in a
bathroom.
compromising position with another stallion sometime
Affair. Yeah,
His face scrunched into a nasty
divorce.
sneer.
Divorce mare.
She and my father have since divorced each other, and we no longer speak. Oh,
I'm
I
sorry.
didn't know that. I responded quietly. I wasn't quite sure what he meant back then, but I did know that ponies rarely severed the sacred bonds of marriage. For the captain to cut off his marital ties to his wife, she must have done something heinous.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you had to go through that.
Please,
Don't worry about me, my friend.
Don't worry about me. No, don't worry
replied,
about me. No,
waving
no.
the matter away with a dismissive hoof. It's all in the past now, and I've moved on.
You
His
have.
serious expression returned a second later.
You moved on.
My father wishes to do the same, and it's for the reason that I ask your help.
It's not a
What can I
a
do?
trick
I asked,
to
bemused,
manipulate
but much more
Twilight
willing
or
to
something.
listen now that I knew the details. How is me being close to the princess gonna help you with your dad? After my mother's betrayal, my father fell into some bad
Difficulties.
habits.
Like,
Blueblood grimaced, as though remembering some particularly
Bad
unpleasant
habit.
memory.
what are the bad
For
habits?
his sake, I won't go into details. But believe me when I say he needs all the help I, as his son and sole heir, can possibly give him.
What
I
should
mulled
Dad done?
Blueblood's words over in
What
my mind
has your
for a
dad
few
done,
good
Blueblood?
moments, searching his eyes for something, though not knowing what exactly. A week ago, I wouldn't have been able to do such a thing, but another reason I'd grown to enjoy Blueblood's company was that he inspired a confidence I didn't normally feel all that often. Looking at him, I could see his concern was genuine, and after another moment, I smiled and nodded. It was possible that the reason his father gave off such bad vibes was that he was still bitter about the divorce,
Yeah.
I thought. Maybe he was just lashing out. Maybe his off-putting attitude was a mask to hide his pain.
Yeah.
Alright, if it'll help your dad, then I'll talk to the princess for you.
Or try to.
What
Unless-
did you need me to say?
Celest.
Excellent!
Unless
Blueblood
Celestia
laughed.
knows
His smile brightened.
something.
I knew I'd be able to count on you, Twilight.
Count with a
Well
calculator.
then. He composed himself and spoke quietly. My father has been searching for another mare to take my mother's place, and he's become quite smitten with a certain Pegasus from his guard.
A
Something
certain
twitched in the back of my
Pegasus.
mind, and my smile slipped slightly.
Whoa.
A thought was beginning to form. but I ignored it as I continued to
What?
listen to
That
Blueblood.
piano changed.
I'm not sure if you're aware, he continued, but during times of peace, and as long as there are others capable of filling their roles, captains are given a certain amount to leave each year to do it as they see fit. And my father wants to spend his time getting to know this mare better.
Okay.
Okay, I replied, ignoring the small knot of unease in my stomach. So, he wants to, what, go on a date with the mare? Something like that, came the cryptic reply, the quiet tone of which did nothing to settle my sudden unease.
Very uneasy.
The problem is, the mare doesn't have the same privilege, and even with his rank, my father can't simply excuse her from her duties.
What does she do,
What I
though?
need to do is convince the princess to allow my father to take the mare with him on leave.
Okay.
Well,
Why can't
I
you
responded,
do
growing
this?
more unsure by the second. Can't he,
Ask.
try to ask the princess
I was
himself?
about to say that.
Blueblood frowned and narrowed his eyes slightly. I looked down at my
It's a
host,
reasonable
unable to
question,
meet his
Blue
gaze.
Blood.
He's already consulted with the princess about the matter, but she refused. He replied
There
slowly.
must be some good
It may
reason.
surprise you to know that, though our princess is a benevolent soul, she tends to be stricter for rules when the royal guard is concerned. Then...
But
Blueblood
there's
pressed,
always a but,
stepping in
isn't there?
close and causing me
There's
to stumble
always a
backwards bit.
flaming but.
As her personal protege, you just might be able to convince her to give a mare some time off to be with my
How?
father. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. The unease I was beginning to feel had grown into full-on doubt, and I found myself wanting to back out of the whole deal.
How did
The
how
older cult was coming on strong.
how
his
if
eyes
how is
flashing
the
with
Twilight
something
gonna
I hadn't seen
make
before,
Celestia
and it was
change her
beginning to
mind
remind
about
me of
someone
how his
giving
father
someone
looked
leave?
when he addressed Crimson Storm.
She's just a
And
well,
that's when it hit me. Deep down, I'd already known who he was talking about, but hoped
Crimson
I was
Storm.
wrong. I now had the feeling I wasn't, and in a moment of clarity, I knew what I had to do. The cult was intelligent, he was cunning, he was confident, but though I was younger and much
Yeah.
more naive, I had my moments of insight. Blue Blood, I began
where's
quietly.
Crimson Storm?
The mare that you're talking about, does she love your dad? Of course she does. The cult replied without missing a beat.
We have a
She's fallen for my father just as he's fallen for her. And I only mean to make both of them happy by bringing them closer together.
how on a blind
frowned
date or
again.
something.
Why? Do you doubt my intentions? If that's the case, I can assure you one last thing. I interjected, looking Blue Blood in the eye.
Oh yeah.
Was the mare's name Crimson Storm? Blue Blood's eyes briefly widened in shock before narrowing. He tried to hide whatever dark emotion he was feeling
Is
behind a
Crimson
mask
Storm
of
then?
mild surprise, but the setting of his jaw gave him away. In that moment, he looked just like his father.
Oh my
and that was when the
gosh.
spell broke. I saw Blue Blood for what he truly was, and I found I didn't like what I saw. I could tell that he knew something was off about my reaction, and that he was trying to come up with a way to convince me to convince the princess.
Okay.
Blue Blood finally replied, his tone somewhat clipped. I wasn't sure that you know about her.
Oh come on!
He sighed heavily. Yes, she is the one my father has his sights set on. If you know Crimson Storm, then you know she can be a bit shy.
Yeah, very
Believe me when I
shy.
say she really does share my father's feelings. No, she doesn't.
Twilight.
I snapped.
Wow.
Shocking Blue Blood again. She hates nobles, and she would never agree to something like that. She doesn't love your dad, and you know that, don't you?
It's a trick. It's a
As I waited
trick.
for an answer, Blue Blood's expression
It's a
slowly
trap.
became
It's always a
inscrutable.
trap.
He said nothing in response, and, spurred on by his
Talk
silence,
about
I
entrapment.
spoke again. I'm sorry, Blue Blood. I continued,
Ah,
shaking my
damn.
head. If what you said about your mom and dad is true, I really am sorry, but I'm not gonna ask the princess to do this for you or him.
Oh
After
my
what felt like
gosh,
inches,
really?
Blue Blood finally replied, nodding his head slowly. So that's it then?
Yes.
He muttered, his expression still unreadable. I suppose it was too much to ask for after all.
You bet!
He spoke
You bet!
to his full height and inclined his head slightly, his next words spoken with an air of polite formality. Very well then, Twilight Sparkle. I guess that means our business ends here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry it came to this, but I will respect your decision. He began to trot
There's
past me,
more to
and I
that, though.
watched him
There's
go
more
with
to that,
blurry
surely.
eyes. Before he got too far, he stopped and turned to look at me over his shoulder. Just remember that you could have made some rather powerful allies had you cooperated. He smiled. I bid you goodbye, and good luck in your endeavors. And though we couldn't see eye to eye, I hope to see you again at the gala. With that, he turned and trotted away, leaving me to fall to my haunches and finally let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. I sat there for a moment, poring over everything that had transpired, and found that
that's what that's what Blue Blood does.
The one foal I thought I could call a friend had
But
only
where
tried
is
to use
he?
me for
Where
his
is
own
Crimson
gain.
Storm? Where
I
is
was
Crimson
alone
Storm?
again, and though I wanted to cry, I didn't. Instead, I frowned and rose back to my hooves before resolutely marching off towards Celestia's chambers. In that moment, I realized that Crimson Storm
I don't
had
like
the
the
right
nobilities.
weapon, and though it may not have been nearly as strong as hers,
Well,
I
some
also
of
began
some
to
of them,
harbor
right?
a
Like,
deep dislike for the nobility from that point on. As I pressed on, I resolved to forget the whole experience altogether and focus on
some
doing
of them
my
are
best
nice.
to help
Like,
Princess Celestia prepare for the upcoming gala as best I could. It seemed she was the only one I could count on after all.
At the gala, at Galacon. That's classical music.
Chapter 6. The Gala.
It's true. Something's going to go wrong at the end of the gala. That happened in the episode. Something
The night of the
always
Grand Galloping
goes
Gala
wrong.
arrived, and it was just as boring and sordid as the princess
Like
had
a
said
fight
it
or
would be.
something.
The whole affair took place in the castle's large ballroom, which had been lavishly decorated for the occasion. Polished marble tables and plush ornate chairs had been set up throughout the entire area, with a massive open space for ponies to dance if they so desired. There was a large buffet table off to the side, and even a massive fountain of what I thought was some kind of punch.
Reminds me of Harry Potter when
I went to partake, I was hastily informed
when
that it was
when the
red
magic of the wine
which had
for
been magically
Slughorn.
made to replenish itself within the fountain. A modestly sized orchestra full
Yes,
of some of the
yes.
best musicians Canterbury
I'm sure.
had to offer
I'm surprised
had also
there's no
been gathered together to play.
like
And of
smoke,
course,
like
there
people
were posh,
pony
pompous,
smoking.
arrogant nobles everywhere I looked. The gala was full of many of the most wealthy and influential ponies in Equestria, and it was Celestia's job to greet and converse with each and every one of them. I, as her lady-in-waiting, had to sit by her
Roll
side
Taylor.
and listen to
Wow,
the nonsense
Twilight,
right along
you're
with her.
lucky.
I sat there uncomfortably in the fancy, frilly, formal white dress the princess had made for me by the royal
Celestia
table.
doesn't.
I smiled
Twilight
and
doesn't
nodded
like,
and looked every bit as
Galadon.
adorable as I was supposed to, all the while hating every minute of it. I wanted desperately to complain and go off to do something, anything else. But I put up
Is
with
this
it
where
for
we're gonna see
Celestia's sake,
Octavia?
as I always did. I
Is
would have
she
much
gonna
rather
be part of
isolated myself
the-
in my room with my textbooks
She'd
and
be a
maybe
filly
some
though.
hot
That means she
chocolate.
won't be
But it wasn't meant to be.
playing an instrument
Eventually,
as such.
however, when the number of nobles seeking Celestia's attention had thinned out somewhat, she let me go and enjoy the festivities. I doubted that there was much to enjoy, but I took the opportunity to stretch my legs and wander about all the same. I made my way around the ballroom looking for something to hold my interest, and I spotted a
buffet.
surprising amount of fools my age, more than I'd seen around the castle at any rate. They were all either stuffing their faces at the buffet,
This is like
whining to their
a
parents about some
big out of
issue
Harry
or
Potter again,
another, or
like
boasting to each
Half-Blood,
other
True
about
Blood
said
or something.
parents and what they'd accomplished. Already, it was all different from what the adults were doing, just louder
Thank
and
you,
more
Sweebo.
obnoxious. There was one filly that caught my attention, however. Sitting alone at a table in one corner of the ballroom near the entrance was a gray earth pony filly. She sat slumped over on the table, one hoof propping her head up as she stared out at the orchestra. Unlike the other fillies who'd been adorned
Is that
in ridiculously
Octavia
pretty dresses much
part of the
like mine,
orchestra?
she instead wore a black tailcoat, not unlike those of the ponies in the orchestra she was eyeing. At first, I simply thought she was enjoying the music, but as curiosity pulled me closer to the table where she sat, I could see the bored expression on her face. More surprisingly than that, however, was the dull lifelessness in the mulberry eyes.
This is
along
Octavia,
with
isn't
her
it? This is
long and
Octavia.
Elegant black mane. She reminded me of Crimson Storm.
No,
Not knowing what
no.
to say, but deciding all the same that I had to say something, I quickened my pace as I moved towards her table. She flicked her eyes in my direction, but her expression didn't change, nor did she say anything as I reached the table and pulled out the other chair. The only reaction she made as I sat down across from her was to return her attention to the orchestra. I wanted to say something, introduce myself
That's true.
maybe, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything now that I was actually sitting there, and I became acutely aware of just how bold it had been to take a seat next to a pony I knew nothing about.
But I don't think...
Against my better judgment,
I don't think all nobles are the same, though,
who was
in a
clearly
sense.
noble. I'd told myself I wouldn't after Blue Blood, and I'd meant it. But this filly was different.
Yeah.
Everything about her told me that she wasn't like any other highborn foal I'd seen.
Twilight has nothing to say?
Like Crimson Storm, I'd been drawn to her by some sort of odd force I couldn't explain. But this time, I was the one with nothing to say. I opened my mouth a few times to speak, but nothing came out, and I ended up just squirming uncomfortably in my seat. Face red with embarrassment, I eventually decided to take the other filly's cue and watch the orchestra play. And while I was a connoisseur of music, I could appreciate the skill with which they performed the rather
Octavia? Is this Octavia? Is Octavia?
I jumped slightly at the unexpected voice and turned to see that the filly hadn't taken her eyes off the orchestra.
Of course it does.
I'm sorry, I said nervously. Did you say something? Well, it seems you aren't going to, so I may as well. The other filly replied in a rather thick Trottingham accent. And I was thinking about this particular piece the orchestra is playing. It's a wonderful piece of music. Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. I agreed, feeling awkward.
Jermaine?
I turned back to the orchestra and watched them silently for another moment.
Well, technically, Octavia is a minor.
It kind of sounds sad, though. Of course it does. It's a dud.
Because it's a classical piece.
The snorted disdainfully. She waved a hoof in the air, taking on a mock tone of awe and respect. Schwarzerigen und Dankler Himmel in G minor, one of the lesser-known works by the late great composer Allegro Melody.
I have to say this now.
Schwarzeregen und... I
Ship?
and gave a quizzical frown at the unfamiliar language. That's Germain, right? I tilted my head slightly.
This music, is it like, this is the, is it Renaissance period? It's not Baroque. It's not Baroque, but Renaissance. I'm just guessing there.
From Germany, but he had a fondness for the language, so he used it when naming a lot of his works. The older filly explained disinterestedly. And the dirt itself was...
And that's how Octavia's getting...
She paused as though trying to remember something.
Probably inspiration to play music.
But the guests
and as Octavia got her cutie mark.
They already died long ago, or something like that at any rate. This song is meant to reflect that. Oh, that's... I didn't really know what to say to that, so I trailed off and said nothing.
Beethoven?
She had mentioned it was her mother's idea.
Or is it a Valdi?
Chosen the song. I didn't know how this filly or her mother were...
I just looked out the window and there's a bloody
given the filly's attire, I assumed they were
full moon
involved.
behind clouds.
I decided I didn't care enough to ask about the matter, but that left us with nothing else
Hello,
to talk
Luna!
about that I could think of. We sat together in an awkward silence, but this one didn't last long before the other filly spoke again, her tone thoughtful. I do like the song, though, she mused. It's a rather odd creation for the quick and hectic pace of his many other masterpieces. She made a show of frowning in contemplation. The way my father tells it, he originally wrote the piece in the wake of his wife's tragic death under mysterious circumstances. That caught my attention. Really?
Because
I asked, leaning forward,
she's, I don't know, females are a bit different than... yeah, she sounds more pleasant.
She didn't just cast me a dismissive side glance like before, but actually looked me in the eye. She looked confused at first, but after a moment, she smiled. It was a small, almost imperceptible thing, but it was the first thing I'd seen since speaking with her.
Okay.
Well, that's interesting, she replied, fully turning
Death.
to face me. You're the first pony I've met who didn't immediately
It is like
try
a
to
funeral
change the
piece or
subject
something.
from such a morbid topic. Her small smile faltered slightly. Aside from Mother. I am? I asked, frowning with amusement. But why? Wouldn't any pony be curious about something like that? Most certainly not. The other
A million ago. Okay, I can't say that. I can't say mammalian properly, but that's 1,000 years.
I heard her next words as she spoke. No sane pony likes to think about death. Something in her voice caused me to wince in discomfort. I couldn't quite parse what it was at the time, but there was some kind of intense emotion behind her words, and it made me want to comfort
Was it on a pirate ship or
Before I had
something?
the chance to respond, however, she quickly moved on, her minuscule smile returning an instant later as she raised her head. In any case, Allegro's wife, Cantabile, died around half a millennium
Or is it a
ago,
sea
and
demon
no
or
pony
something? I don't
knows
know.
exactly how. She continued, leaning forward and speaking in a low conspiratorial near whisper. It's said her bloated body washed ashore on the coast not too far from Trottingham.
Oh, come on! Let's ship him already!
And they found a badly rusted knife next to the body, but there were no visible wounds.
Oh?
Wow, that's weird.
It does have to...
I muttered in response.
The colour's very similar to Twilight Eyes, though. I've just seen that.
Well, personally...
But she does look like a
replied,
cat
her ears perking up,
in this
and a
picture,
small
though.
irritated
It looks like
frown
a cat
crossing her
ears.
face. I wondered
Very
why,
cute cat
until
ears.
I noticed
Yeah.
that there was no longer any music playing in the background. With a sigh, the filly adjusted her bow tie and hopped down from her seat before turning back to me.
Aww.
She gave me an apologetic smile, but what little light I saw growing in her eyes as she spoke...
She's
had
going...
completely died out.
Is she going to trot to
Even
tossing
I
them?
could see that the smile was as empty and lifeless as her eyes. Well, it was
sorry.
a pleasure, but I have a
What answers that?
quiet engagement I must attend to, she exclaimed with a polite nod.
Is she
Perhaps
part of the
we'll meet again
orchestra?
at some point. Oh, right, yeah, I replied, hiding my disappointment behind a strained smile and giving a half-hearted wave. It was nice meeting you too. She gave one last
she gave
nod
like
of
a piece, didn't
acknowledgement
she?
before turning away and trotting off towards the stage where the orchestra had just finished playing.
Come
I
on,
watched her
cello
go,
down
wondering
now.
what she was up to, but the
Cello
other ponies
down.
on stage had moved off of it, and I got my answer soon enough. The filly had moved around to the back of the stage, and I lost sight of her for a moment. A minute later, two
What's she gonna
unicorns
play,
came
though?
back onto the stage, one of them holding what looked like a miniature bass in their magic, and the other holding a small stand and what I assumed was sheet music. While one of the ponies set up the stand and sheet music, I spotted the well-dressed filly trot onto the stage. I watched surprised as the filly stoically accepted the miniature bass, a cello, I remind myself.
She's very talented
and
then
before
for
stepping in
her
front of the
Asian
stand.
then.
The pony that had set up the stand lowered it enough for the filly to see the sheet music, and with that
That's true.
done, both of them quickly left the stage, leaving the filly on her own. It was then that I noticed just how quiet it had gotten, and I looked around to see that the
Yes,
majority
true.
of partygoers had stopped what they were doing and were now
Well, the
walking
thing
the
is,
stage. Excited whispers and muttering could be heard throughout the crowd as the filly propped herself up on her hind legs, bow in one
like how
hand
the
and
ponies
cello in the other.
play
She hadn't
music
even
with
started
the
playing,
Hoovers like
and I
that.
was already stunned. I'd only ever been to one concert in my life at that point, and each and every musician had been a unicorn, which made sense.
Yeah, she's very
given how
talented.
easily
Oh,
they could
Octavia's
manipulate
talented, yeah.
instruments. It was common knowledge that stringed instruments in particular were exclusively used by unicorns, given how complicated it was
Hang
for
on.
a pony to use them with anything other than magic. Or so I thought. I'd never
That
seen an
is-
earth pony even
that's like a
attempt to use
sadness
stringed
type music.
instrument, let alone play one, and yet this filly made wielding one without magic look almost effortless.
It's
Then,
something on
without any sort of
Octavia's mind
preamble,
that's making her play
she
that
began
music.
to play, and the entire ballroom fell completely silent. She played with the skill of a musician at 3 times
Yeah.
her senior, and with 4 times as much experience. I didn't know the name of the song she played, but it was fast, sharp, and intense, a far cry from what the orchestra had played earlier, If I had to attach an
You were
emotion to what I heard,
you were kind of
it
nervous,
would have been
Twilight.
anger or perhaps aggravation.
Or is it love
and I
at first
loved
sight or
every
something?
second of it. I sat there at the table, watching the extremely talented filly drag the bow across the strings of her cello at a breakneck pace, completely enraptured by the sound. With some effort, I pulled my attention away from the filly on stage, and saw I wasn't the only pony who had been blown away by the performance. I realized then that I never actually caught the filly's name, much to my embarrassment and frustration. The encounter had been so strange and awkward that I had forgotten to introduce myself altogether.
This is DJ Pone 3!
For the moment, I swept my gaze across the throng of nobles and saw that all looked at the filly with rapt fascination, except for one stuffy-looking slate-gray unicorn mare near the stage. She watched the filly with
that means
something
Octavia's
that
a
looked
filly.
like immense dissatisfaction.
Is she? If
Her jaw set
she's
in
here,
a
that
fierce
is.
scowl, and her smoky gray eyes narrowed dangerously. The mare had a black mane tied in a French braid, and aside from the severe expression, the color of her eyes, and the fact that she was a unicorn, she was the splitting image of the filly. Or rather,
Crimson
I
Storm?
thought with an odd sense of dread, the filly was the splitting image of the mare. The filly didn't seem to notice, however. All of her attention focused on the music. She never faltered, never looked away from the stage,
Done it again,
and
haven't
the
I?
expression on her sweaty face never wavered even once. She was all but lost to the world. And
Whoa,
when the
whoa, whoa,
song
whoa.
finally ended several minutes later, and the crowd stomped their hooves and
That
shouted their
that
praise.
music turns
It looked
sinister.
as though she had been snapped out of a trance. I would have cheered right along with them,
That's
but
blood.
something caught my eye at the last moment, and I turned towards the entrance of the ballroom.
Oh,
Standing in the
really?
shadows just outside the double doors was the
Really?
one thing I never expected to see at the gala. Crimson Storm stood outside the room, saw armor, watching the crowd silently with an inscrutable look.
Is she hurt?
At that moment, all thoughts of the filly and her outstanding performance
And
left
Twilight's
my
gonna
mind,
follow.
as
Of
did
course.
everything save for the red Pegasus mare standing in the doorway. It was hard to tell with her coat color, but I could just make out a slightly darker tinge of red in her cheeks. What was more noticeable was the unsteady way she stood, looking as though she might fall over at any moment, only to catch herself before she got too far. I wanted to call out to her, but something told me that would have been a very bad idea.
Blue Blood and
I
Octavia.
instead opted to go to her.
I don't know.
It didn't look as though she'd see me, and this was confirmed when she stepped
Is she
back
hurt?
and began briskly trotting down the hall and out of sight. I quickly trotted
And
to
Twilight's
the door
gonna
before
follow, of
stopping and
course.
casting a brief worried glance over my shoulder at where the princess sat. She was still conversing animatedly with the gentry, so I took the opportunity to slip out after Crimson Storm, concern gnawing at me and spurring me on. Had I been paying more attention to my surroundings, I would have seen that my departure had not gone unnoticed by a certain Colt and his friends.
Blue Blood and Octavia. I don't know. Chapter
7, The Dungeons.
Oh, right. Are we gonna find Snape now?
I left the gala and followed after Crimson Storm, only to lose her.
That means we're in the
She
basement.
hadn't
Then.
looked all that steady on her hooves, but apparently she was well enough to lose a filly
Is she-
in these
has she
mostly
been-
empty corridors.
Has she been
Still,
tortured or
something tugged
something?
at me about Crimson Storm's condition, and I couldn't help the growing dread forming in my stomach. That ominous feeling was what made me chase after her in the first place, but in doing so,
She's
I only
hurt.
found myself lost
Or
in an
she's
area of the
leading
castle I didn't
Twilight into a
recognize.
trap or something.
I
Or
may have been a
foreboding
fool,
it.
but I
as
wasn't
such.
completely ignorant in what some adults did in their spare time. Everything I saw about Crimson as she stood in the doorway pointed
Yeah.
towards the mare being inebriated. And while that was extremely surprising, that wasn't what worried me. At least,
What worried
that
you
wasn't
then?
the main thing. What worried me
Oh,
more was
man.
why she was drunk and what her intentions were.
She was
Add to the
drunk?
fact that I hadn't seen her in what felt to me like ages, and there was no way in Tartarus.
Yeah, it's
that I
been a
wasn't
while
planning to check
though.
on her.
It has been a while.
I wandered the halls, ignoring
He
looks
has
of
been a while,
amusement
yeah.
and the odd muttering or two from the few ponies trotting about as I searched. I asked a few of the guards' ponies I saw if they had seen Crimson Storm, But as soon as the name left my mouth,
No.
they'd get nervous and either deny they'd seen the mare, make some excuse and leave.
They're too scared to talk about.
Me outright. Had I not been so worried about
the guards are
Crimson
too
and
scared to
frustrated
talk
with the
about it.
stonewalling I was
But
receiving,
why?
I probably would have been
Something
more suspicious.
is up.
As it
Something
stood,
is
however,
wrong.
The attitude of
And
the
it's
ones
us.
I asked only made
And
me
it's
more
up to
determined
the
find
narrator to
drunken
talk,
guard.
tell us about.
I wasn't sure how long it had
Narrator
been
to
since I
tell
started
about it.
searching,
My God.
But even in my single-mindedness, I was keenly aware that the gala was going on, and that Celestia was most likely going to be wondering where I was soon. I
Oh yeah,
growled and stomped a
Celestia will find out,
frustration at the
or
thought that I'd have to
realise
give
you're
up the
missing.
search after I'd come all this way, but it couldn't be helped. I'd already left the party and probably made the princess worry, and realized
I kind
much to my
of
dismay,
called it,
I
and
should
Twilight
head back,
really
even though I
turned
had
Ace
nothing
Detective,
to
hasn't
show
she?
for my efforts.
Yeah.
That was when I truly began to realize just how lost I was. No matter which way I looked, every passage seemed the same. I saw a couple of stairwells
you're
and
underneath
began
the
to wonder
castle,
if
then?
I descended to another floor in my absent-mindedness. Thinking back, it was hard to remember
How big is
exactly where my
Canterlot,
course had
man?
taken me, and as I wandered about, trying to find my way back, I began to panic. I called out for help, for any pony to come and show me the way back. But the corridors had become terribly empty, with no nobles, castle staff, or guards in sight.
And I'm just imagining like torch brackets
was just how
or
shabby
torch
this part
flame
of the
brackets
castle
along the
looked.
corridor.
The pristine marble walls had become somewhat grayed and flaky. There were far fewer doors lining the hallways, and the black
And I
and
don't
white
think any
marble
pony's been
floors
down
and
here for
lush maroon
years.
carpets had given way to hard gray stone. There weren't even any windows that I could
Are
see.
we on?
and
We
the
are
more
actually
I
on the
saw,
bedrock, aren't
The
we?
more my frenzied panic gave way to quiet fear.
Yeah.
I stopped shouting, because at this point, I felt I would have stumbled across some kind of monster down here in this place.
And I'm
It was
expecting
eerily
Twilight's being
quiet, and I
followed.
could hear my own
or being
tiny
watched.
footsteps echoing in the hall. I remember thinking some bad pony, or worse, would pop out of one of the few closed doors and grab me, and began to hyperventilate. I was
Yeah.
about ready to throw all caution to the
Do
wind
the
and
cadence,
start
calm
crying
down.
out, screaming for help, when a voice somewhere behind
Breathe in,
me called
breathe
my name
out.
and made me jump and scream anyway. To my own
Yeah.
credit, or perhaps stupidity, given the situation, I didn't immediately flee for my life. Rather,
No.
I turned with wide, fearful eyes to see the owner of the voice, and came face to face with none other than Blueblood the Seventh. The cult, against all odds,
Why is
had
Blueblood
somehow
down
found
there?
me in the Celestia forsaken corridor. I almost thought he wasn't real, and the fact that he was.
I
should have
thought
raised
he
a
would
few
be at the
questions,
gala.
but I was too out of it to care at the moment. All hostility, all suspicion.
What are you doing
disapproval,
down
and
here,
decency,
Twilight?
all of that was shunted aside as I slammed
I'm
into the
behind you,
teenage
I'm
colt
Blueblood.
and wrapped him in a tight, shaky hug.
Oh, laughs.
I sobbed and wheezed into his withers, his look of concern turning into one of shock, then cautious reassurance as he uncomfortably patted me on the back. After a moment, my sobs became sniffles, and I finally managed to take a step back and collect my thoughts another moment after that. I apologize.
She gonna
if
cry
I
about
scared you.
Wisdom.
That wasn't my intention, Blueblood said with
Yeah?
a warm if apologetic smile. Did
Why
think
are
I
you
needed
down
to know?
here?
I nodded mutely as I sniffed again and wiped my eyes. Now that the fear and panic had abated, I was left feeling awkward and embarrassed at my own display.
But I still don't
Blueblood
trust
just
Blueblood
seemed
though.
to take my sour silence in stride.
I'm
His
still
concerned
undecided
look
about
returned as he spoke
Crimson
again.
Storm.
That's good to hear. But if I may ask, what are you doing all the way down here, Miss Sparkle?
I could
He
ask you the
inquired,
same
looking around
question.
him. This is quite a ways from the gala. He looked back to me
Yeah.
with a quizzical expression. I'd expected you to be by the princess's side, yet here you are, lost and alone in this dreadful place.
Why are you down here if it's
was
dreadful?
looking for some pony. I muttered,
Yeah, Crimson
not
Storm.
meeting his eye. I got lost and ended up here somehow. Now that I was able to think
Don't
clearly,
don't
I
tell him
remembered
the
my
full
dislike
story,
for the cult,
Twilight.
And in light of that, I wasn't willing to give him any more information than that.
Yeah.
Of course, there wasn't much more information to give, other than that the pony
I don't
happened to be searching for was
don't
Pinkie
technically
Storm,
trust him.
but that hardly mattered to me at that time. That aside, the more important questions to be asked were once again at the forefront of my mind, so I asked them.
Go on
What
then.
are you doing here? I replied,
just said
my eyes
that!
glowing slightly as I raised my head to face Blueblood.
Oh dear.
How did you even find me here? The gods. The cult answered simply.
The
I found
gods?
meaning to speak with you during the gala and apologize about our previous altercation, but you were nowhere to be found. He trotted past me and down the hall.
Some tells me that is a bloody lie.
With a small smirk.
There's
I'm not
some.
sure if you're aware of this.
I don't
Miss
think it's.
Sparkle, but you've gained a
You're not-
reputation for being something of an introvert, a loner, if you will, and I simply assumed you decided to return to your room for the night. Imagine my surprise when I checked to find
Twilight.
that you weren't
No, I mean,
there
it's
either.
Blue Blood's not.
You went to my room?
Blue Blood is
And what do you
telling a
mean,
lie
loner?
somewhere.
I squawked, taken aback. I mean, sure. I like to be left alone sometimes, and I spend a lot of
Yeah.
time in my room when I'm not with the princess. But I
That's
don't
true.
think I'm a loner.
No.
The argument didn't sound very strong in my own ears, and we both knew that what he said was the truth. In the days following my
Was it?
declination of Blueblood's offer,
Yeah.
I'd usually
Twilight was
spend
telling
my
the truth
time
there.
alone
Yeah.
in my room when I wasn't helping Princess Celestia prepare. Even before that, I
Is
spent
that
a great
she's
deal
a
of
book
time
horse?
studying alone
She loves to
whenever I
study.
could. Come now, Miss Sparkle. It's clear for any pony to see that you aren't particularly fond of company. He sighed and bowed his head.
Yeah,
And
that's
I'm afraid I
true.
have to take some blame for that. I know what you must think of me after our disagreement, and you're right. I was wrong to try and use you for my own gain, and I apologize for that. That's what I wanted to tell you during the
It seems
gala.
like that is just empty
When I didn't
words,
see
but
you at the gala, I slipped out to look for you, and grew worried when I was informed that
but how
hadn't
do you know
returned
she
to
was
your
missing
campus
though?
either. He explained, his expression turning serious. I asked around.
Why
and
so
found you from
serious?
This way, so I followed after you and found you here. Oh, I replied.
But how would you
not
know
really knowing what
Twilight
else
will
to
be
say.
there in the first place?
I eyed the cult,
No.
looking for any sign of insincerity, but his words and look seemed earnest enough, so I chose to let bygones be bygones.
I just have to say
Well,
this. I don't
thanks,
know
I
if
guess.
Blue Blood has
What do you
got a
call it?
Sparrow with
Thanks
him.
for looking for me. I don't know how long I could have been stuck here, wherever we are.
And
I
Crossbow.
frowned
Sparrow and
and
Crossbow.
scanned the area once
Sorry,
again.
sorry. Bad joke,
Where
bad joke, I
are
know.
we, anyway? You don't
You're in
know?
the dungeons!
Blueblood asked, apparently surprised. He chuckled a moment later and trotted ahead, motioning for me to follow. In that case, let's head back and I'll tell you what I know along the way. I hesitated for a moment, looking from Blueblood's retreating
Whoa.
form to the opposite side of the hall where I
Blue Blood is kind of stopping Twilight
I could have
discover
sworn
the
I heard
truth.
other
He's
footsteps
stopping
beside her
Twilight
room,
discovering the
but
truth
another
with
nervous look
Crimson.
around revealed nothing. After a few seconds, I bit my lip worriedly and moved to catch up with the cult. Are you
Yeah.
sure this is the right way? I muttered, glancing behind me. I'm
He's
pretty sure the
leading her
exit
into a
stops that
trap.
way.
There's
At least I
always a
think it is.
bloody trap!
There's another set of stairs closer this way. Blueblood replied with calm confidence. I wouldn't exactly call it a shortcut per se, but it's close enough. Once we reach the staircase,
Where
and
you
head straight
taking
up,
her?
we should end up on the first floor, a little ways from the ballroom. All right then, if you say so. I replied, just happy to finally be
dear.
leaving this horrible place.
I think we
trotted
were
along
that
quietly
close
for
to
a
the
moment
truth,
while Blue Blood
and
got
he
his
just
bearings.
stopped that.
And unable to stand the eerie quiet, I spoke first. So, what is this place? And how do you know so much about it? My father
Come
brought me
on!
here once for something of a history lesson.
Delicate.
Blueblood explained. He
Hi-
turned to look at me from
history
over his
lesson?
shoulder.
Why, you're an
Are you
archaeologist or
aware of
something?
just how old this castle is, Miss Sparkle? Well,
Very old.
I answered, trying to rack my brain for the information. According to Princess Celestia, Kennerlock Castle was built a little over 990 years ago. She told me she
Well,
herself had
okay,
in the
Twilight.
design.
That means Celestia is older than the castle.
Chuckled Blueblood. But as you know, times change, and oftentimes
Yeah.
the past is forgotten and left behind in favor of the future. That's true for a lot of things, including
Yeah.
architecture. This place. And he gestured to the dirty, flaking grey walls.
This is the
and
oldest.
cracked
I think
stone
this is
floor.
the oldest part of the castle, isn't
Happens
it?
to be an old abandoned part of the castle. So old that I even
Fucking
doubt
hell!
the princess princess has even talked about these ancient corridors and
Really?
staircases. Wow, I nearly whispered, looking around the hall. with wonder.
Bloody
The
hell!
fact that I was trotting through a place of ancient history
Bloody
put these
hell.
unsettling corridors in a new light for me.
Bloody hell, man! Oh
Rather
my
than remodel
god!
the place, Princess Celestia left it as it was.
Yeah,
A strange decision.
and
in my
rebuild
opinion,
and
but I
rebuild
wasn't
from the
going to explain,
rebuild it from the
though my
ground up or
curiosity
something.
had
Yeah.
been piqued. So, where do these halls lead anyway? I'm so glad you asked.
Where
Blue
does
Blood
it lead?
answered as he pushed open a heavy-looking wooden door with his magic.
I'll be quiet, you.
The reason these halls were abandoned was because the princess had more use for them after the war against the Minotaurs. We stepped through the creaky door.
War against the
and I
Minotaurs?
froze, my eyes wide with shock and confusion. Before me was a set of steep
Minotaur is
cobblestone
a-
steps leading down into a thick,
It's like Iron
musty
Will, isn't it?
darkness. I couldn't see anything below, but as I stared into that darkness, my mind wandered elsewhere. Equestria was
Yeah.
a different place back then, or so my
Yeah,
father
yeah.
tells me. I heard Blue Blood say from somewhere
This is
distant.
this
After
is
the war,
pre-Pony.
we would capture and interrogate
I'll be
prisoners
quiet.
until they
This
spilled their
this is
secrets.
pre-Ponyville,
These
isn't
halls
it?
led to the very place where captured prisoners would be held. It
Yeah.
happened in an instant.
This is pre-Ponyville.
I'd been so distracted by a memory that had been trying to push itself to the surface that I was completely caught off guard when I felt something
where's that?
shove
Is that
me
wind?
forward. A cry of surprise became loud, sharp yelps of agony as I stumbled, tripped, and rolled head over hoof down the steps. I
Oh,
felt something catch and tug at my dress a moment before a terrible ripping sound reached my ears. I gave a pained grunt as I hit the cold hard ground below.
oh,
I groaned and whimpered at the sharp pain shooting up one of my back legs, and winced at the overall soreness beginning to spread throughout the rest of my body. I'd definitely hit my head at some point during the fall, and it pounded incessantly. Though thankful my
That's
horn
painful.
hadn't gotten caught, but even in my addled state, I knew it wasn't a good idea to try and use magic. I tried to rise to my hoofs, but cried out and fell back down into a heap as another stab of pain buckled my leg. I'd been knocked senseless by the tumble and found it incredibly hard to concentrate on any one thing. My vision was hazy with tears and spots of black, making it even harder to see anything in the gloom around me.
it's
I
pitch
coughed a
black.
pain-filled
It's pitch
cough,
black then.
grunted and winced as I shifted my weight, and craned my neck up towards the top of the steps. My eyes widened.
Has she broken
as
her
I
hoof
saw
then?
not only Blue
Or her
Blood's
she-
outline,
her
but two
hoof?
others as well, peering down at me from just beyond the doorway. My mind
Oh.
worked furiously to figure out just
Reminds
what
me
was
of,
going on, but
Alien
the pain in my leg
Experiments.
overrode any sense of rational thought for the moment, and I could only whimper helplessly.
Yeah.
A bit much, don't you think, Winter Chime? Came a familiar and slightly irritated voice of Blue Blood.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
If she suffers any sort of permanent injury, things are not going to go well for us. There was a beat of
It's a
silence
trap.
since the shadow of the cult leaned in close to the other silhouetted pony and hissed. And if things don't go well for us, I'll make sure they go much worse for you. Got it?
What?
Yeah, I got it, Blue Blood. Sorry. Another familiar voice squeaked. It won't happen again. I promise. You better make sure it doesn't. Now then. There was a clearing of the
What?
throat, and the largest silhouette began to make its way down the steps. I apologize on behalf of Winter Chime, Miss Sparkle. I assure you I had every intention of having this chat of ours peacefully and without any pony getting hurt.
Oh,
But-
come on! You
well,
planned this!
I could see
Surely!
the outline of Blue Blood shrug. There's nothing for it now, I guess. As I listened to the cult, my eyes flickered over to the other two still standing at the top of the steps. There was no doubt about it. The friends Blue Blood had ditched before were back, and they'd all
Oh.
been working together to... what? Why were they doing this? I had gotten the feeling Winter Chime didn't like me very much for some reason. That had been evident from the point
It's
I
a
met her.
plan or something to
That
get
she was
to
apparently the one
Crimson
who
or
pushed
something.
me
I don't
down the
know.
steps didn't surprise me at all. But what about Greedy Gut? I could tell he was the other pony in the doorway,
Yeah.
but he hadn't said anything about what was going on, and I couldn't make out his face from here. He simply looked on from above as Blue Blood continued to casually make his way down the steps towards me. Then the door slammed shut, leaving Blue Blood
You're
and I
locked in.
completely alone. I yelped at the noise and tried to scramble to my hooves again, only to be painfully reminded of my current condition. I wasn't sure if my leg was broken, and now I couldn't see if it was.
Maybe
But it
fractured.
certainly felt like it. For a few moments, everything was suddenly bathed in complete darkness. Then a bright blue light from somewhere above me lit up the area.
A blue
I
light?
looked back up to see Blue Blood's
Is
form
this
glow,
an
the light
experiment?
casting unnerving shadows over his feet
This is one of-
and the walls around us. He looked down at
This
me,
is like
wearing
the
a
first
pleasant, charming
process of
grin, as though he was
elimination.
taking a
Roll
leisurely
credits.
stroll in the castle gardens, but I could see nothing else in his eyes that made me shiver. Maybe I'd just been imagining it due to the light, but somehow I doubted that. Now I realize how this all seems, but it was only my
Is it going
intention
to turn
talk.
Twilight
Nothing
into
more
an
than that.
evil pony?
He sighed and shook his head as he reached the bottom of the staircase. Honestly, I'd meant to bring you somewhere more... He looked around him with a disgusted grimace. Aesthetically pleasing than this.
Yeah.
It serves my purposes well enough. Why? I mewed weakly.
Why?
Blue Blood, I sucked in a breath and whimpered again as I accidentally put weight on my back leg. My leg. Blue Blood, I need
Broken.
help. Please. I wanted to cry in earnest. I wanted to scream and wail and bawl my eyes out.
Is this Tom Riddle?
I should have, and I think I normally would have, but somehow I managed to hold it back. My amethyst eyes wet with tears and white with pain and pleading.
Yeah.
Blue Blood's calm, almost impassive blue orbs. After a long, tense moment of silence, save for my ragged breathing, Blue Blood trotted past me and further into the darkness beyond the stairs.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm not sure how Father can stand to see ponies like this. He mused aloud as he moved further.
I don't
and
like you,
further
Blue
away.
Blood.
I've always preferred words over hooves when it came to getting what I want, personally. I've tried to see it his way.
Personally, I think you
but
should
this
call Red
isn't
Blood.
just doing it for me. He stopped a short distance away and turned back to me, looking me over with a deep frown. I matched his frown with a pathetic one.
No, you
and
can
another
do what
wink
I say.
and he snorted before turning away and speaking again. Lucky for you, my mother had the sense to teach me some minor healing magic before she betrayed my father and disgraced our family. But we'll have to hold off on that.
You're gonna heal Twilight?
I
How?
dislike seeing you in such pain. This also suits my needs. At least, for the moment.
For now.
His voice echoed off the walls ominously, and I couldn't help but shiver again. Blue Blood? I asked, struggling to turn so that I faced the
Why are you doing
I
this?
chanced a glance behind me, and in the dim light of Blue Blood's horn, it didn't look like anything was broken, but there had probably been a sprain at least, and the fancy white dress I wore was ruined, practically in tatters at the bottom. I
Aww.
clenched my teeth against
I bet it
the
was
spark
a
of pain
good
and turned back to Blue Blood.
Cute dress.
What are you talking about? Why did you... As I said before, I wanted us to be able to talk in private. You and I. Blue Blood...
Why do you need to meet in the dungeons then?
Candid, Miss Sparkle. I haven't quite given up on this deal of ours just yet. And I wanted to. He had his
You
back turned
wanted
me,
to?
But I could see him roll a hoof around in the air as he searched for the right words to say. We worked the conditions of the offer. Before that, though, I believe
You gotta
wanted
make
to know where
Twilight
these holes
do the
were,
offer?
correct?
By torture?
Well, I was going to tell you before I was so rudely interrupted. Again, I'm sorry about that. He paused a moment and looked up, his head moving back and forth as he searched for something I couldn't see. Another second later, the light surrounding his horn went out, and the room was pitch black once again. It didn't last long.
Twilight
before Blue
is
Blood's
a
horn
prisoner
went out
now
again,
in the
this
dungeon.
time only flashing once. There was a soft whoosh, followed by several more, as sconces previously unseen began to blaze one by one along one wall.
Oh yeah?
In the soft orange glow, I thought we'd wound up in some kind of hallway made of dark gray flatstone. But that wasn't the case.
Oh?
On
Blood.
one side of the room, across from the lit sconces, I could see rows of cells with thick iron bars, some open, some tight shut,
This is
and others
prison.
with the bars snapped off in places. There was a barred door at the end of the room, far behind Blue Blood, leading deeper into the dark stone.
This reminds me of the Diamond Dogs
The memory
episode
that had been
with the
gnawing at me
cage,
since I
with
first
the
saw the stone steps
prisoner
suddenly came
lock,
rushing back to me
prisoner sort of
with the
things.
intensity of a hurricane. Dark room at the bottom of a stone staircase. Crimson storm.
And Twilight has fallen down. This is the dream that she had.
Blood, dark and sticky, on the ground, the walls, stuck to her hooves, in her
And
fur,
did Crimson
her
Storm?
teeth.
Did Crimson Storm kind of
Was that
manifest
me?
a
I muttered.
thing?
My eyes
Twilight?
losing
I don't
focus
know.
as I tried to remember. Was Crimson Storm really there? Or was that me? I can't. My
But
unfocused gaze returned to the older Colt.
a kind of
making his
dream
way back
she had
over to me, all
it's
covered
basically
in
the
smiles.
vision of this place.
Was it Blue Blood? A pleasant thrill coursed through my entire body as the images warped and twisted in my mind. I watched, as though I was outside looking in, as the madly laughing red mare became a giggling lavender filly. I watched as the bloodied white stallion became a mangled and mutilated white colt.
Is Crimson Storm evil now then?
What is this? Is that the dream I had? The thoughts
Said
rolled
that.
together in my mind until I could no longer discern the difference between the actual dream and what my mind had only just conjured up. Somewhere deep down, I could feel the sharp pain in my leg and the lesser pain in my other extremities. But that and the growing confusion
yeah, you're
and
broken your hoof,
disorientation
Twilight.
was becoming drowned out by an oddly pleasant tingle coursing through my body. It was almost enough to make me laugh aloud.
It almost think
despite-
Twilight's gonna get killed
There we go.
at the end of the day, but
Finally
the story, there's this
fan
fanfiction story in the works.
Much better. He stopped in front of me and looked around again, his smile falling into another sour grimace. Well, maybe not.
Maybe not.
This
What?
place is rather filthy, but that's to be expected after hundreds of years of neglect.
That's true.
He
Well,
shook his
why are
head
you down
and
here then?
turned
Why are
in
you?
mock disappointment
You just want
before
to
turning
entrap
back to me,
Twilight.
his smile
It's
once more back
entrapment.
in place. He raised a hoof
Sorry.
and swept it across the room in a grand gesture. In any case, Twilight Sparkle, allow me to welcome you to the abandoned dungeons beneath Canterlot Castle.
The Chamber of Secrets. Chapter.
Chapter 8. The Fractured Mask.
Mask.
Blue Blood silently paced back and forth in front of me with a thoughtful frown. I paid him little attention, my mind still trying to come to terms with the images I'd seen. In light of that, it didn't matter.
Is this vision, or is it actually real, or is it being implanted in her mind, like what happened to Harry Potter
In that
in
moment,
Order
it
of the
didn't
Phoenix?
matter that I was injured. It didn't matter that my dress was ruined. And it didn't matter that I'd been tricked. My small frame still tingled oddly from the pleasant sensation those horribly macabre thoughts had given me.
Yeah.
And I squirmed uncomfortably, unsure whether to be amused or afraid in this situation.
I think you'd
But why would I
be
be amused at all?
afraid. Be
I wondered.
very afraid,
There was
Twilight.
nothing amusing about being injured and stuck down in an old abandoned dungeon
Yeah.
and at the mercy of some pony who most likely had nothing good planned for you.
Yeah.
And yet, something inside me found the whole thing utterly ridiculous. Laughable, even.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Miss Sparkle. Blue Blood began suddenly. You've gone quite far out of your way just to go looking for this pony. What made you think they'd be all the way down here? He stopped his pacing and moved in close, lowering his head. So that
It was
he was
Crimson
eyeing
Storm
me.
that went down there, but
What
was it
exactly
Crimson
was
Storm?
it that you were looking for? None
The
of your
Crimson
business.
Storm set
I
a,
heard myself
a
growl
trap
through
for Twilight.
clenched teeth. I got turned around
Or
and
Changeling.
wound up
I don't
here.
know.
That's all. It doesn't matter anyway, because they weren't here. I was still unsure of how to feel, so instead, I opted for defiance. Blue Blood had said he didn't want to hurt me, but I couldn't be sure of that given his other lies.
That's true.
Being scared, however, wasn't getting me anywhere.
Trust no one.
And while I was still worried,
Or no
I
pony.
could at least manage to put up a brave front. Yes, that is a shame. Blueblood sighed as he straightened up and stepped back. But I'm fairly sure I already know who you were so desperately trying to locate.
Of course you would.
He cast a sly smirk my way. It was Crimson Storm, right? That creepy royal guard? She's
Not
creepy.
I'm about to fucking say that! She's not creepy!
She just isn't good at talking to ponies. That's no reason for every
She's
pony
shy.
to be scared of her. Oh, it's not Crimson Storm every pony is scared of, Miss Sparkle. I
Oh?
assure you. Blueblood chuckled
What are you
mirthlessly.
talking about?
Rather, they're scared of the one holding her reins, as it were. What?
Is she a
I
puppet?
asked, dumbfounded. What are you talking about? Holding her reins? What does that mean?
She's a
Crimson
puppet.
Storm wasn't always the way she is now, you know. Blueblood continued, as though he hadn't even heard.
Did
my
she have the
question.
same sort of injuries as Twilight?
She used to be a lot like you, actually. Shy, introverted, naive as sin, but ultimately a nice pony that was easy to get along with. He paused,
Until you
sighed,
turned
and
her
shook his
evil.
head. But then she caught my father's eye, the poor mare. I grimaced, half from the pain in my leg, and half from the thought of the elder Blueblood.
Oh, I mean,
I knew from the beginning
his father
that there
then,
was
isn't it?
something
It's
wrong
talking about...
with the stallion, but I had no idea just how horrible he really was. Not
Yeah.
until his son laid it out for me. My father,
Lay it out to
Prince
me.
Blueblood VI, captain of the Royal Guard, head of House Blueblood, one of the wealthiest and most influential ponies alive.
Yeah.
The colt snorted. And without a doubt, one of the most ruthless ponies in existence.
No.
I'm not sure if you've met my father,
No,
but he is
I don't
not
think
a
we have.
stallion to be trifled with. I've seen him before, I replied quietly, my eyes
Ooh.
wandering from the colt as I thought back to
Where?
the
I
interaction
don't-
between
where?
the
I'm trying to
captain
think
and
where.
Crimson Storm. I could see for myself that your dad wasn't a very nice pony.
yeah.
That, at least,
Is that a
something
trap
we
that
can agree on.
Twilight is making for him?
Blueblood responded with a small smirk. It soon fell into a frown as he began his pacing once more. Like Crimson Storm, my father used to be a different stallion. He was still a cold and calculating sort, but he had a heart. Somewhere in there.
He had a heart.
His frown deepened into a dark scowl.
Are we talking to
Until my
Tom
mother
Riddle
found
slash
it and
Voldemort
tore it
here?
out. I watched Blueblood carefully and saw that the hurt in his expression was genuine. I
Yeah.
believed him, but no longer sympathized like I did the last time he'd mentioned what happened with his mother.
But I don't 100%
To
trust
anyone
him.
else, this would have been so surprising given the circumstances, but I found it strange. We were happy.
Very strange.
Well, as was reasonable to be at any rate. But my mother... He snorted. Or his father was fond of calling her, that harlot. Found another stallion to
harlot?
keep her warm at night, it seems.
Yeah.
And that's when things fell apart for our family.
Oh, that's
We
when the
were,
divorce
and
came
still
into
are
play.
fine as far as finances and power are concerned.
Yeah.
But the reputation of the household of Blueblood took quite a hit. And my father changed after that. Drastically.
I'm
It was
also
his turn to
sensing
wince as he
a
spoke. He grew more bitter,
what's his name?
angry, violent.
Barty Crouch Jr.
Especially around men.
Barty Crouch.
Did he hurt you? I found myself asking deep
The
down
Chrissy
for
Arthur's
entirely
curse.
the wrong reason. Did he?
Sorry.
Wait. Everything clicked together, and
Whoa.
my eyes widened in realization.
Well, Twilight just realised something.
He hurt Crimson Storm. Hurt Crimson Storm? Blueblood laughed joyously.
He murdered her? I mean, him?
Miss Sparkle.
Her?
He
Yeah,
broke
her?
Crimson Storm. That's what he does now. He broke her down over
He's a
time to make sure that
murderer.
any pony who realized what was going on stayed silent about it. He is, after all, a very powerful...
But you
story
allow it,
in
though!
almost every sense of the word.
Come on.
So, all those ponies that wouldn't tell me what was wrong with Crimson Storm, I muttered, my eyes wide and once again growing wet with tears. All this time, the reason she was so... Now you begin to understand, Twilight Sparkle.
Damn.
Blueblood exclaimed, jabbing a hoof in my direction.
I don't like him at all.
I said Crimson Storm had caught my father's eye.
I don't like...
It wasn't as a potential lover, but as a simple...
I still don't like Blueblood. I don't like him.
He let his hoof
Crimson Storm I'm not sure about. I'm not sure.
In front of me. His expression weary.
But Crimson Storm kind of allowed it to happen.
And where do you fit in all of this? Where do we fit in all of this?
We? Why should we trust you?
That was a good question, I thought. Where did we fit in all of this? From what I could see, and by the way he spoke, it didn't seem like Blueblood agreed with what his father was doing. And yet here I was, still bruised, still sore.
If he doesn't agree with it, why did he fucking stop it then?
Had the magic to heal me. He said he didn't like seeing me hurt, and yet refused to take the pain away simply because it suited him to keep me in this state. And for what? So he'd have a captive audience to listen to his monologue? His sob story about his family?
Yeah, he wants to...
The only thing I cared about
he wants to get the center of attention, doesn't he?
As these thoughts took hold, my tears began to dry up. The horrible
and Twilight's falling down again.
Slowly being replaced with something altogether different.
Oh?
My open mouth slowly closed shut, then turned down in a slight frown, and I didn't reply to Blueblood's question.
Good.
The older Colt seemed not to notice, though, lost in his own words as he was, and continued speaking.
Damn.
It's quite simple, really.
Is it?
Blueblood continued, pushing one lock of his golden mane out of his face. I want my father back, like how he used to be before Mother's betrayal. After he's had his way with that Pegasus mare, he comes home and for a time I get my father back. He looked away from me, his eyes distant and wistful, his voice quiet and slightly shaky.
His father turned to the dark side.
I have no idea what that means.
Has he got a tattoo on his arm?
Idea.
A hoof, I mean.
He grew quiet and stayed that way for a long minute before turning back to me with a small smile. My frown only deepened at that smile. There was something off about it.
Yeah, very off.
That, and his eyes. There was something desperate about his expression, something slightly unhinged. That's why I need you, Miss Sparkle.
Oh my god!
He explained, rising to his hooves and taking a step closer.
You step away from her!
I'm most likely the closest pony to the princess right now. It is you, above all others, who have her ear. He lowered his head and practically
I don't like him at all!
His eyes and smile growing wider and wider by the second. You can convince her to give Crimson Storm to my father, and then I can have my father back, and things will be like they were before.
Why do you talk to Celestia? You could do that, you're the...
And all the while, my disgust and anger were mingling, mixing together to create something I'd never experienced before. There was an insistent pounding in the back of my head, and my heart was thumping loudly in my chest.
What's she thinking?
Somewhere deep down, that odd sensation was beginning to rise again, but I tried to push it back down, afraid something horrible would happen if I let it overtake me.
Pain.
Then the strangest thing happened. My eyes by chance happened to flick away from Blueblood's face and to the room behind him. Off a little ways into the distance, near one of the cells.
Prism is in prison. Always his dad's in prison.
Had snapped off, lying scattered about. Some long, some short, all of them very sharp at one end.
Ooh, it sounds like a torture device.
Another image flashed across my mind, but this was no dream. It was an idea. It was an idea involving one of those iron bars, some simple levitation.
No iron will then.
A decent amount of force, enough to drive metal through flesh and bone.
Yeah.
This was not an idea that a filly should have.
No.
This was not an idea that any pony should have had.
No.
And yet there it was. And the more Blueblood spoke, the better the idea seemed.
Blueblood has built.
This is why I haven't given up. This is why we're down here now, and why I'm talking to you. Blue Blood was raving, completely oblivious to my internal struggle.
He doesn't.
This Twilight
He
Sparkle.
doesn't care about you,
Understand?
or doesn't care about
This is what I may
Twilight.
suffer for to some degree, but that would be a small price to pay for the love of a father, don't you think?
I don't
What say
know.
you, Miss Sparkle? Will you help me? Will you talk to the princess? You will be rewarded handsomely.
Just say,
Whatever
probably
in
say
my
yes,
family's power to
and
give you. Just name it, and...
Be
I don't
nice.
care about your dad, and I don't care about you, Blue Blood. And after what he did to Crimson Storm, I hope he burns in Tartarus. I hope both
Tartarus.
of you do. I'm not telling the princess to do anything, so you can go tell that to your stupid father.
Wow,
It was
Twilight
my voice.
has got
They were
guts.
my words.
She got guts
But I
inside
could
her.
scarcely believe either to be the case. All the anger had drained out of my tone and was replaced with something dark and cold. My heartbeat had quickened significantly.
But someone
and
tell me
the
this is
pounding
not all
in my
over.
head had grown so bad I could feel it reverberating in my
This is not
skin,
over yet.
but it didn't hurt, oddly enough.
It's still needs to be
Blue Blood, for his
questions
part,
though.
seemed
Let's
to have
read.
frozen, his early wide smile locked in place. For a moment, we both stared at each other, and eventually, his smile gradually melted away, and his expression grew blank. At
He's
the
gonna
same
get. He's
time,
gonna get more angry,
the
isn't
feeling
he?
I'd been working so hard to hold back suddenly slipped through, and it was my turn to smile. I smiled, and in that tense silence, with my heart thumping and my head pounding, my horn began to light up.
Oh.
Almost it felt of its own accord. My
Is-
eyes never left Blue Blood's, but I could feel my
Is
magic
she-
wrap reassuringly
it's like a
around
magic
something
surge,
further
isn't it?
behind him. I knew what I was about to do, and I knew it was bad.
You gotta,
But in the face of satisfaction, I'd soon
kill
feel
Blue
the
Blood,
consequences
Twilight.
didn't register. Nothing registered except for the
Oh,
weight
but I would
of
say
the cold iron and the
Murder is
pain of
not
this
really the
stupid
best thing to
situation.
do at your
It
age,
seemed absurd to me before,
but
and now I knew why. It was because I could just kill Blue Blood and be done with the whole thing. So simple a solution that a fool could have come up with it. So
Oh.
simple that
that what? That
something
what?
smashed into my horn and everything went white.
Ooh.
My world suddenly exploding in pain.
Ooh.
I cried out, trying to cover my face with bruised legs, as blows continued to rain down one after another. My magic winked out, and somewhere in the distance,
Someone's got the
past
magic.
almost unbearable pain,
Release
I could
the
hear something
magic!
hit the floor with a loud metallic clang. It was clear Blue Blood hadn't noticed, as he was far too busy trying to pummel every inch of me he could reach.
Yeah.
I could hear him grunting and growling with rage, sputtering furious.
Is that
half-formed
Crimson
words
Storm
as he
to the
swung at me
rescue?
repeatedly. I could see his face, his wild eyes bulging out of his head, and his mouth twisted in a horrible snarl. At some point, I'd curled
I've
up
got
on the
you
ground,
now,
trying to protect
Twilight.
myself from Blue Blood's assault. It felt like an eternity before it ended, but end it did, and just as abruptly as it had started.
Yeah.
I was left lying there, a whimpering, blubbering mess of bruises. Both the
I'm
terribly pleasant
surprised
sensation
you're not
and
bloody.
horrifying
I'm
murderous
surprised you're not
contempt had long
full of
since
blood as
gone,
well.
beaten right out of me.
You got blood inside me, you know what I
Ultimately,
mean?
it was probably for the best, but at that moment, I would have given anything to feel that instead of the pain I was feeling now.
Oh, you must be in pain, Twilight,
Then,
sorry.
everything stopped.
Well?
A series of outraged grunts and protests from Blue Blood caused me to open my eyes, which had been squeezed shut and were already starting to swell.
Oh
What I
dear.
saw gave me more than a bit of pause, and my mouth fell open in shock.
Your eyes, is your eyes bruised as
Sitting
well?
on her haunches with a furious colt locked and struggling in her front legs was Crimson Storm. Looking up to where the entrance was,
Oh,
I could
sorry,
see that the door
Twilight,
was
you're back
open,
on the
and
chair
Blue
again.
Blood's friends were nowhere in sight.
Oh.
I turned back to the red mare, my heart swelling with relief and gratitude, but that quickly died out when I saw the look on her face.
Yeah.
Whereas Blue Blood's expression had been full of white, hot rage, Crimson Storm's face was a calm mask. But the ice-cold fury in her eyes was all too easy to see,
Oh.
and all of it was directed at Blue Blood. Her cheeks were still stained with a slightly
Crimson
darker
is gonna
shade of
murder
red,
Blue Blood?
but it looked as though
Or
any other semblance of
something?
inebriation had vanished. Crimson Storm? I croaked between painful coughs, still unable to believe what I was seeing. you're here.
Why?
How did you...
Find me.
I'm sorry you had to go through all of this, Twilight.
She replied, her tone just as flat as it always was, despite the situation and her obvious fury.
But
Her eyes remained fixed on the struggling colt as she spoke.
I meant to see you sooner, but I haven't been able to. I've been...
busy.
But I'm here now, and everything is going to be just fine.
Fine.
He won't hurt you.
Anymore.
Not anymore. He won't hurt you.
Ever again.
One of her legs tightened around Blue Blood's neck, and he gave a choked gurgle.
Oh.
His furious indignation replaced with fear and panic as the gravity of his situation finally settled over him.
Well, what's
Once
happening?
Crimson Storm was certain the colt was lucid, she released a bit of the pressure and smiled down at him. It was the first time I'd seen her smile in any capacity. It was a terrible smile, full of hatred and ill intent. It was a smile that reminded me of the
Crimson Storm is the murderer
It
then.
was a smile that reminded me of the one I'd given Blue Blood, just as I was about to do something very, very bad.
Very
I
bad
suddenly
indeed.
felt sick.
Crimson Storm?
I began in a horrified near whisper. What are you doing?
This is why I hate nobles, Twilight.
She continued, as
Oh?
though I hadn't even spoken.
They're all the same. All of them. Once they're wealthy,
Not
renowned,
technically
revered house of
true.
Blue Blood.
Because
She
Octavia
gave an
wasn't
unsteady chuckle,
like him.
her eyes clouding over slightly as she peered down at the now terrified colt.
That's a sinister laugh.
Like father, like son, as they say.
Yeah.
Her voice had become shaky and unstable, the pitch rising higher as she
Stable
spoke.
17?
I watched with no amount of unease as she leaned in close to Blue Blood and whispered in his ear, her wide smile falling into a knowing grin.
Isn't that right, you little monster?
You monster! Okay. That's the end of that chapter. Part 2, known about Sparrow, of course. Okay. Part 3 is coming soon. Hope you enjoyed the video. Okay, that's Sparrow V's A Process of Elimination, Part 2, Chapters 4 to 8. Okay, what a chapters, man. That was this was technically this was the first. I love Mob One. This is technically the first. Yeah, this was technically the first elimination. Technically, how many Mob Bars are going past? 4. Technically, that's 5. Was it 6? I'm sensing Crimson Storm. Crimson as in blood, because crimson is like a blood colour. That's not a joke, by the way. That's fact. Did he murder Blue Blood? I think Blue Blood is the first victim. I'm glad he's gone, but at the same time, it's not the right thing to do. You can't send to their level sometimes. You just can't. And I made this sort of story. I made this same sort of thing in my own story. So killing, but something tells me we might see. I don't know. We don't know if Blue Blood is technically dead. Oh dear. A favourite chapter. I think the favourite. I do like the Gala chapter. I like the music in the Gala, and Octavia is quite talented. For at that young age, she's quite talented. And I think it was, like I said, it was Renaissance. Is that the way how you say it? Renaissance. Yeah, I think we say it differently. I definitely knew it wasn't Baroque music, because those are two totally different tunes. We didn't see much of Crimson Storm at the beginning, and it begged me to think that she was already in the dungeon, or Chamber of Secrets, I should say.
Seriously?
Oh, seriously? Oh, dear. I know what I was doing at the end of the chapter, this last chapter, I was kind of predicting what Crimson Storm was going to say. In a way. Yeah. And I saw the books! There's a lot of books! I could go high pitch! Yeah. I had kind of been thinking because the moment she mentioned, the moment I thought back to the last chapter with the dream, but I think that dream was also, it was actually happening. She was having a vision of the dungeon, like Harry Potter having a vision of the Department of Mysteries. It's a real. She was dreaming of a real place, technically. Oh God. A premonition, basically a vision. A vision. There's a burp. Yeah, a vision. Yeah, a vision. A vision of elimination. I want to see more of.
Seriously?
Sorry, I'm really. I'm sorry. Octavia. We are not done. Not by a long shot. That's. Oh, that line is directly from Night Flight Bats. We're not done. Not by a long shot. There's more to this story that meets the eye. And Crimson Storm may be full of blood. Maybe full of blood, technically. There's something that Crimson Storm is not telling. We got a little bit of backstory, bit of history lesson. A very dark history lesson, technically. And it makes me think, I don't think Celestia knows about this. Or does she? We don't technically know. Maybe in later chapters we might know. Part 3 will be out soon. I think in July. Hopefully it'll go quick. That maybe chapters 9 to 14, depending how long the chapters are, because I think the chapter is about 1,000 words or more per chapter, technically. Hopefully I do this reaction and all my reaction videos I do, and I will see you next time. Oh yes.
And